My wife, female, 27 years old, and I, male, 27 years old, have been together for 7 years and married for 5. I met my best friend, male, 26 years old, shortly before I got married around 6 years ago. My wife met my friend about a year later. Since then, we regularly spent time together until I left that job, and we moved away about 2 years ago. We still stayed in contact with my friend through long distance. My wife and he would occasionally talk platonically. My wife and I, like any couple, have had our own challenges in our relationship. When we first started dating, she weighed around 110 pounds and was 5 feet 2 inches tall. Over time, she consistently gained weight, and now she weighs nearly 180 pounds. As a result, my physical attraction towards her has declined, leading to less intimacy. I have tried to discuss it with her and support her, but ultimately I cannot force her to do anything she does not want to do. I have mostly maintained the same physical appearance since we got together, except for gaining about 15 pounds of muscle. I'm not expecting or desiring for her to be at her high school weight. When we got married, she was at a healthy weight of around 130 pounds, which I was perfectly fine with. After our last conversation about her weight, she became frustrated and vented to my friend. From what I understand, this is when she admitted to having some attraction to him, and they developed a mutual crush, which I was unaware of at the time. This happened about a year ago, and since our last discussion, I have not mentioned anything about her appearance or my attraction towards her. Recently, we went on a trip and visited my friend for a few days, as we had not seen him in a while. On the last night of our visit, something seemed to happen between my wife and my friend, and after I went to bed, they hooked up. She later confessed it to me after I noticed her odd behavior. Both she and my friend have been cheated on in previous relationships, so they were the last people I expected to cheat. I understand that my decreased attraction towards her might have played a role, as she claims she missed the flirting and the chase. It feels unnatural for me to engage in those things if I'm not genuinely attracted to her as much as I once was. Although we still have intimacy, it happens less frequently compared to the past because of this. Personally, I believe I've been very patient with her and given her space to figure things out on her own. I've made it clear that I am willing to help if she wants it, since this has been an ongoing struggle for years. At one point, I even suggested that she fulfill her intimacy needs with someone else if she wasn't getting what she needed from me, but only if we had a discussion about it beforehand to ensure transparency. After their hookup, I'm at a loss for what to do. I still love her, and I have never connected with another woman as well as I do with her. But I feel like my efforts have been wasted, and that I have been betrayed by both of them now. I feel like I have done everything I can to support and make it easier for her, but it seems to have had no effect. I am unsure of what steps to take next. I am simply seeking different perspectives on the situation. I can provide more details if anyone is willing to give their opinion. Thank you in advance. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Wow, she gained weight and you got turned off. No wonder she didn't feel desired and slept with someone else. Best to divorce and let her be with someone who wants her and finds her sexually attractive. Comment 2. That's a betrayal you don't come back from. It's time for you to move on. You are young. You will be fine. You'll meet someone else, I promise. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading my last post. So, after my wife confessed to hooking up with my friend, things have been tense to say the least. We decided to stay at a hotel for the last night of our trip to give ourselves some space. The drive back home was mostly silent, with both of us lost in our thoughts. I could tell she was feeling guilty, but I was too hurt and confused to talk about it right then. The first night back home, I slept on the couch. I needed time to process everything. The next morning, my wife approached me with puffy eyes, clearly from crying all night. She apologized again and said she wanted to work things out. She admitted that she had been feeling neglected and unattractive, which led her to seek validation from my friend. She said she still loved me and wanted to fix our marriage. I told her I needed some time to think. I wasn't sure if I could get past the betrayal, but I also didn't want to make any rash decisions. Over the next couple of days, we had several long conversations. We talked about our feelings, our needs, and what went wrong. It was emotionally draining, but it felt necessary. During one of these conversations, my wife revealed something that caught me off guard. She said that she had always felt like she was living in my shadow. She felt like she had to compete with my accomplishments and my physical appearance, which made her insecure. This insecurity only grew as she gained weight and felt less attractive. She admitted that she'd been using food as a way to cope with her feelings of inadequacy. This revelation hit me hard. I had always seen her as a strong, independent woman, but I never realized how much she was struggling internally. It made me question if I had been too focused on my own needs and not enough on hers. I started to see her weight gain in a different light, as a symptom of deeper issues rather than just a lack of discipline. Meanwhile, my friend reached out to me, wanting to talk. I was hesitant at first, but I agreed to meet him. We met at a coffee shop, and he looked just as miserable as I felt. He apologized profusely and said that he never meant to hurt me. He admitted that he had developed feelings for my wife over the years, but he never acted on them until that night. He said he was drunk and lonely, and it was a moment of weakness. I told him that I needed time to figure things out and that I wasn't sure if I could ever trust him again. He understood and said he would give me space. As I left the coffee shop, I felt a mix of anger and sadness. I had lost not only my trust in my wife, but also in my best friend. Back at home, my wife and I decided to try couples therapy. We found a therapist who specialized in infidelity and started attending sessions twice a week. The therapy sessions were tough. We had to confront a lot of uncomfortable truths about our relationship and ourselves. But it also helped us understand each other better. One of the most significant breakthroughs came during a session where the therapist asked us to talk about our childhoods. My wife opened up about her parents' tumultuous relationship and how it affected her self-esteem. She said that her father was always critical of her weight, and her mother was emotionally distant. This made her crave validation and affection, which she initially found in me, but later sought from my friend when she felt neglected. I shared my own experiences of growing up in a household where physical fitness was highly valued. My parents were both athletes, and there was always an emphasis on staying in shape. This shaped my views on physical appearance and, unknowingly, put pressure on my wife. These sessions helped us see the patterns in our behavior and how our pasts influenced our present. It wasn't an excuse for what happened, but it gave us a starting point for healing. As we continued therapy, we also started working on rebuilding our intimacy. We made an effort to spend more quality time together, doing activities we both enjoyed. We went for walks, cooked meals together, and even started a new hobby, gardening. These small steps helped us reconnect on a deeper level. However, the road to recovery wasn't smooth. There were moments of doubt and anger. I would sometimes find myself questioning if I could ever fully trust her again. She, on the other hand, struggled with guilt and self-worth. But we kept pushing through, determined to make it work. One evening, while we were having dinner, my wife brought up the idea of a trial separation. She said that she needed time to work on herself and her issues without the pressure of our relationship. She suggested that we take a break for a few months and then reassess where we stood. I was initially resistant to the idea. The thought of being apart scared me, but I also understood where she was coming from. After a long discussion, we agreed to give it a try. We set some ground rules like staying in touch and attending therapy separately. During the separation, I focused on my own self-improvement. I started going to the gym more regularly and picked up a new hobby, painting. It was a way for me to channel my emotions and find some peace. My wife, on the other hand, joined a support group for people struggling with body image issues and started seeing a nutritionist. We still talked regularly, and our conversations became more open and honest. We shared our progress and our struggles, and it felt like we were slowly rebuilding the trust that had been shattered. After 3 months, we decided to move back in together. It wasn't a magical fix, but it felt like a fresh start. We continued therapy and made a conscious effort to communicate better. We also set aside time for regular date nights, something we had neglected over the years. As for my friend, our relationship remains strained. We occasionally exchange messages, but it's not the same. I don't know if we'll ever be as close as we once were, but I'm focusing on my marriage for now. Thanks for reading. Aita for blocking my creepy brother-in-law after he asked about my sex life. I, 22-year-old female, have a brother-in-law, 33-year-old male. For context, we live in different cities, and only meet in person about 2 times a year. One time he asked me to look after my nephew because he and my sister wanted to have some alone time. He was kind of embarrassed about telling me that, so I told him that it's okay. I mean, I'm an adult. They have a son. I know how it's done. I told him, which I now regret, that I didn't mind talking about intimacy with him. I did consider him a friend, and I talk with my friends about intimacy from time to time, so I didn't really see a problem with that. He also told me that I should tell him if something felt uncomfortable for me. But then he started messaging me in the spring while my sister and nephew were visiting my parents in another country, and he started asking me questions about my intimacy life. How many partners did I have? Do I enjoy threesomes? Do I enjoy butt stuff? Did I self-intimacy today? And so on. He worded them in such gross ways that I honestly started getting the feeling that he was getting off on that. And he tried to push me to answer, even when I said that I wasn't comfortable answering something. In the end, I just lied to avoid more questions. Sometimes he also wanted me to guess something about him. How many women he slept with. What woman would he like to have a threesome with? I told him many times that I didn't want to guess, that it wasn't something I was interested to know. He still insisted that I guess. In the end, I told him that the questions are making me feel uncomfortable. He doesn't know when to stop questioning, and that we should refrain from the topic of intimacy. It seemed like he understood. He stopped asking me questions and deleted all our messages from that period. But my sister's visiting our parents again, and yesterday he texted me again. It started innocently enough. He was asking if I could look after my nephew when I was visiting. But then the questions started again. The last straw was when I told him that I was going to sleep, and he asked whether I would self-intimacy before that. I told him that I was too tired and just wanted to sleep, to which he replied that it's a good thing to relax and self-intimacy tomorrow morning. That grossed me out, and I reminded him that we agreed to stop talking about it. He said that he must have forgotten. Is he really getting off on that, or am I just imagining things because of the terms he uses? We talk about intimacy differently, and while I prefer to use more medical terms, the way he words everything just grosses me out. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Trust your intuition that he is getting off on it. It is one thing for you to say you don't mind talking about intimacy if the topic comes up organically, but another thing for him to continue a text thread dedicated to explicit intimacy questioning, especially since you have now asked him to stop. You should tell your sister about this too? Comment 2. Yeah, he is getting off on this. Your discomfort might be sexually satisfying to him as well. Send the messages to your sister. She may take his side though, so mentally prepare for that. He is the one who ruined all these relationships by his actions, regardless of the actual outcome. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So, 2 weeks ago, after that last gross message from my brother-in-law, I decided to block him on all social media and messaging apps. I didn't want to deal with his creepy questions anymore, and I thought that would be the end of it. But things got more complicated than I expected. A few days after I blocked him, my sister called me. She sounded really upset and asked why I wasn't responding to her husband's messages. I didn't want to tell her the real reason over the phone, so I just said I was busy and would explain everything when I saw her. She seemed to accept that, but I could tell she was worried. When I finally visited my parents' house, my sister was there with my nephew. She pulled me aside almost immediately and asked what was going on. I took a deep breath and told her everything. I explained how her husband had been asking me inappropriate questions and how uncomfortable it made me feel. She was shocked and didn't know what to say at first. Then she got really quiet and said she needed to talk to her husband. I could see the hurt and confusion in her eyes, and it broke my heart. I didn't want to be the one to cause problems in their marriage, but I couldn't keep this secret any longer. Later that night, my sister confronted her husband about the messages. He denied everything at first, saying I must have misunderstood his intentions. But when she pressed him, he finally admitted that he had crossed the line. He apologized to her and promised it would never happen again. My sister was devastated. She didn't know if she could trust him anymore, and she felt betrayed by both of us. She asked me why I didn't tell her sooner, and I explained that I didn't want to cause any trouble. She said she understood, but I could tell she was still hurt. The next few days were really tense. My sister and her husband were barely speaking, and I felt like I was walking on eggshells around them. My parents noticed something was wrong, but we didn't tell them what was going on. One night, my sister came to my room and told me she had made a decision. She said she needed some time to think and figure out what she wanted to do. She asked me to look after my nephew for a few days while she stayed with a friend. I agreed even though I was worried about her. While my sister was gone, I spent a lot of time with my nephew. He's such a sweet kid and broke my heart to think about how all of this might affect him. I tried to keep things as normal as possible for him, but it was hard. During this time, I started to think about my own feelings and what I wanted. I realized that I couldn't keep pretending everything was okay. I needed to set boundaries and stand up for myself, even if it meant causing some pain. When my sister came back, she looked exhausted but determined. She told me she had decided to give her husband another chance, but with some conditions. She said they were going to start couples therapy and work on rebuilding their trust. She also made it clear that if he ever crossed the line again, she would leave him. I was relieved that she had made a decision, but I was also worried about her. I didn't know if her husband would really change, and I didn't want her to get hurt again. But I knew I had to support her no matter what. A few days later, my brother-in-law called me. He apologized for his behavior and said he was committed to changing. He asked if we could start over and try to rebuild our relationship. I told him I appreciated the apology, but I needed some time and space to process everything. Since then, things have been slowly getting better. My sister and her husband are going to therapy, and they seem to be making progress. My sister and I have been talking more, and I feel like we're starting to rebuild our relationship too. But there's still a part of me that feels uneasy. I can't shake the feeling that something else is going on. Something my sister isn't telling me. I don't want to push her, but I also don't want her to go through this alone. I guess only time will tell if things will really change. For now, I'm just trying to take it one day at a time and be there for my sister and nephew. Thanks for reading. Aita for prioritizing my mental health over my fiance's anti-medication beliefs. I could use some help navigating this situation, please. My fiance, 33-year-old male, and I, 26-year-old female, together a total of over 4 years, are getting married this August. We have a 5-year-old son as well. I am diagnosed with bipolar disorder, borderline personality disorder, general anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, and obesity. My fiancé is diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. My family has an extensive history of mental health disorders, and my childhood was traumatic. I've always had issues, but they got worse after having my baby, and I was finally receiving extra care through a postpartum program. So I received medications for the first time, an antipsychotic and an antidepressant. I took those for about 1.5 years, and they helped me a lot. Things weren't perfect, but I was much more level-headed and capable of facing life's challenges. Well, around last fall, my fiancé decided he can't stand me on medication. He never loved the idea, but he really started to hate it then. I gained 30 pounds from the antipsychotic, and that was certainly part of his concern. Now I'm 40 pounds heavier than when we got together. Over the course of many months, he would guilt me every day about being drugged and dependent, and encourage me to come off of my medication. He believes that I'm being manipulated by Big Pharma and prescribes something that I don't really need. I consulted a psychiatrist and they didn't support me coming off of my meds, but helped me do it anyway. I've been off of all of my meds for 1.5 months, and guys, it is not going. Well, my mood swings are incredible. I'm aggressive and mean, violent, having insane manic episodes. Spent literally all of my money, financially dependent on him now. I'm a full-time student who doesn't work, and also miserable depressive episodes. I also had a 19 GPA in school, but this semester I am failing. My fiancé believes that if I have proper sleep, eat half my maintenance calories, and exercise, among other healthy habits, then my mental health issues would be resolved. Believe me when I tell you that he puts immense guilt and pressure on me every day to push these things on me. My mom, his mom, my siblings, my friends, my therapists, I have 2, my family doctor, and myself all believe that I need to be medicated. He says he refuses to marry someone who is on drugs and has given me that ultimatum. I had a very scary manic episode last week, and I reached for my antipsychotic, and he wrestled it from my hands, spilling it all over the floor. He picked them up and hid the bottle from me and refuses to tell me where it is. Yes, I know these are red flags, but please remember that he has Asperger's syndrome and that I am putting him through hell too. He cries every day from the stress of dealing with my mood swings, but he believes it will get better without medication. I don't. My question is, how can I navigate this situation? How can I convince him that this medication is not a drug? It's literal medicine to ease the symptoms of my very real conditions. How can I convince him that these intense symptoms are not only withdrawal? And how can I convince him that all those cruxes of health that are ever so important to him that I achieve cannot be accomplished or even worked on while I am struggling just to stay sane? Thank you. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. There is no navigating this situation. You have been given medications by professionals who study for decades to learn about these diseases, how they manifest, and what treatment options are available, and how they work. In comparison, we have your boyfriend who thinks all your problems will go away. If you just try hard enough, even though you know from your personal experience that these medications work, your boyfriend still thinks he knows better than everybody else. He doesn't, and he is actively harming your health with his behavior. There is no explaining this to him. Either he is a rational human being who lets you make your own medical decisions under the guidance of your doctors, or he's someone you need to walk away from for your health and the safety of your child. Also this. Eat half my maintenance calories is just bonkers. Your boyfriend has no business giving anyone medical advice since he clearly knows nothing about it. Comment 2. I don't like being mean online, but OP, you are being absolutely idiotic here. He has straight up physically, mentally, financially, and medically abused you. He will do the same thing to your child. You need to leave. There is no salvation. He will not change. He will never change. Nothing you can say or do will affect him. Having autism does not justify his actions or his words. He is an aggressor. Reach out to friends and family, if you have none. Reach out to a women's shelter in your area. If you have the opportunity to leave, leave. If you have the opportunity to leave and you don't, that will not end well. But that is your decision and no sympathy can be gained. That would be your own doing. Being single can suck, but it sure as hell ain't as bad as getting physically, emotionally, financially, and medically abused. Get that through your head. Please, leave, please. Now for the update. Thank you for all the comments from the last post. I could use some help navigating this situation, please. So, this past week has been pretty up and down. After my last post, things took a turn for the worse. My fiance and I had another huge argument about my medication. He still insists that I don't need it and that I can manage my mental health through lifestyle changes. But my mood swings have been out of control, and I feel like I'm losing my mind. On Monday, I had a particularly bad manic episode, and I was yelling and throwing things, and my fiance tried to calm me down. But it only made things worse. I ended up locking myself in the bathroom and crying for hours. When I finally came out, my fiance was sitting on the couch, looking defeated. He told me that he can't keep doing this and that something needs to change. The next day, I decided to reach out to my therapist for help. I had a virtual session with her, and she was very concerned about my mental state. She suggested that I go back on my medication, even if it means going against my fiance's wishes. She also recommended that I consider couples therapy to help us navigate this difficult time. I brought up the idea of couples therapy to my fiance, but he was not receptive. He said that he doesn't believe in therapy, and that we just need to work things out on our own. This led to another argument, and I ended up spending the night at my mom's house to get some space. While I was at my mom's, she sat me down and had a heart-to-heart with me. She told me that she is very worried about my mental health, and that she thinks I need to prioritize my well-being over my relationship. She also shared some stories from her own past, about how she stayed in a toxic relationship for too long because she was afraid of being alone. Her words really hit home, and I started to question whether I'm doing the right thing by staying with my fiance. On Thursday, I had a meeting with my academic advisor to discuss my failing grades. I explained my situation to her, and she was very understanding. She suggested that I take a leave of absence from school to focus on my mental health. This was a tough pill to swallow, but I know that she is right. I can't keep up with my studies when I'm in such a bad place mentally. When I got home that evening, my fiancé and I had a long talk. I told him about my conversation with my mom and my meeting with my academic advisor. I also told him that I am seriously considering going back on my medication, even if it means risking our relationship. He was very upset and accused me of not caring about his feelings. He said that he feels like I am choosing the medication over him. This led to a very emotional discussion about our future. My fiancé admitted that he is scared of losing me and that he doesn't know how to handle my mental health issues. He said that he feels overwhelmed and helpless, and that he just wants me to be happy and healthy. I told him that I understand his concerns, but that I need to do what is best for my mental health. On Friday, I had another virtual session with my therapist. I told her about my conversation with my fiancé, and she suggested that I take some time to think about what I really want. She also recommended that I reach out to my psychiatrist to discuss going back on my medication. Over the weekend, I did a lot of soul searching. I thought about my relationship with my fiancé and whether it is truly healthy for me. I also thought about my son and what kind of environment I want to raise him in. I realized that I need to be in a stable and healthy place in order to be the best mom I can be. On Sunday, I made a decision. I called my psychiatrist and scheduled an appointment to discuss going back on my medication. I also told my fiancé about my decision, and he was very upset. He said that he feels like I am giving up on our relationship and that he doesn't know if he can stay with me if I go back on the medication. This has been a very difficult week, and I'm still trying to process everything. I love my fiancé, but I know that I need to prioritize my mental health. I am hoping that we can find a way to work through this together, but I also know that I need to be prepared for the possibility that our relationship may not survive this. Thank you for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.